Hello, today we're going to be making me. Stick around and you'll find out how to make your very own version. Welcome back to a kooky corner of YouTube. I hope you are all super well. If you're new here, I'm Tori or Kooky, I answer to both. And this is my little corner of YouTube. So kick off your shoes, grab a biscuit and a cup of tea and sit down. So this is what we're going to be having a go at today. I have been really taken with these little Scrappy dolls I'm seeing around, and so I thought I would show you my process of how I made this one. I've been making dolls for quite a few years now. So starting off with rag dolls I made for my daughters many years ago. Many years ago. I've also made teddy bears, all kinds of things. You know the drill. I make all kinds of stuff here. So let's have a little look at how this little one has been put together. First, a little tale. We all have that inner child. Some of us have a child that screams more than others. My inner child loves colour, bright things, making things, and just generally enjoying life and loving things. And this little doll is a reminder to me of all those things that I love, that my inner child loves, and that I need to embrace also as an adult. Because if you listen to your inner child, sometimes you can learn something, and it's so much more freeing if you let your inner child take the reins in your artwork. You can be more free because you really don't have any consequences. As a child, when you made art or you made something, you made it. You didn't care whether anybody was going to like it. You just enjoyed the process. And so I think everybody should make their own inner child Scrappy doll to remind them that life doesn't have to be so serious. There are a lot of serious things going on, but you just sometimes need an escape from that. And I think art and crafts is one way of doing that. And this little one reminds me every day, because she's sat on my desk now, of just to be silly once in a while, just to have fun, because that's the way we'll learn and grow and just let go of all our inhibitions. Well, not all of them. Don't want you racing down the streets in your nightie, okay? Just putting that out there. Right, let's have a little look. So, Scrappy dolls. These are dolls just made from scraps. They are generally made up from your own ideas. So the first thing I want you to do is to make a little list of all the things that you would like your doll to portray, should I say. So I wanted mine to be fun and colourful. I wanted her to show that she loved art. I wanted her to show that she liked collecting shiny things, because she's a Magpie Womble, isn't she? Of course she is. And just make her fun. That was basically my little note to myself, just to make sure that she got all the things that I love. So we've got embroidery on here, we've got a little pencil, stripy tights. I love stripy tights, don't know about you, especially if they're rainbow coloured, So how to make her? Really simple. You sketch yourself out a body, and it's like a piece that includes the body and the head. So this is my very simple thing. That's it. That is the pattern. I'm sure you could come up with your own pattern quite easily, but this one I will put in the Facebook group just in case you just want a shape to work with. Now you need to bear in mind that when this is put together with another part behind it, so I've backed mine, she's backed with felt. She's not got a double side, but you could double side her and put something on the back as well if you wanted to. I haven't, I've just backed her with felt. But when you sew up that, it goes in, obviously, because that's 2-dimensional, that's 3-dimensional. So bear in mind how wide you'd like your doll to be. Now, if you print out mine, you want it a bit wider, a bit narrower, a bit smaller, you're very welcome to alter this one if you want to, but I'm sure that you could come up with something quite easily of your own devices. You can make your own pattern. And really, that's what I'm trying to say is patterns are something that people are always crying out for. If you're on Facebook groups, somebody's saying, but where's the pattern? Where's the pattern? With Scrappy dolls, there isn't really a pattern. You just have to just go with your own ideas. But some people just need something to start them off with. This is such a simple starter, believe me. It really is so simple. So this pattern I will put in my Facebook group, and if you're in the Facebook group, you'll get this in the files section. It really is just such a simple thing that you could do your own, but there is one there if you require it. Okay, so I'm holding your hand. There's one there. I've got you covered. Okay, so what you're going to need for this, you're going to need a base pattern, which you either draw yourself or take mine that I've got here. Number 2, you're going to need scraps of fabric. Writing it down so I remember. Number 3, you're going to need some felt for base and back. Now with the backing fabric, I've gone with a wool felt because that's going to be seen. With the base fabric, I've just gone for a plain old crafty acrylic felt because it's going to be covered up with scraps. So use what you've got. If you've got some wadding or something for the base, use that. But you're going to need something for the backing. You're either going to do a double-sided doll or just a one-sided doll. So that's up to you. Thread. You're going to need some thread and a needle. I have sewn all of mine by hand. If you want to, you could sew yours together with a machine just to make things a little bit quicker, but I quite enjoyed the process. Whenever I make my dolls or my teddy bears or whatever, I tend to do them by hand, and that way I kind of get a feel for them. I know that sounds weird, but it's kind of like they take on their own personality and I feel more connected to them. But you know, use your machine if you need to. So, or sewing machine. If I was making a lot of them, which I'm not, I would probably use a sewing machine, but this is something that you can just play with and enjoy and have fun. Remember, your doll wants you to have fun, okay? So, other things that we're going to need. Now, you probably noticed her beautiful legs with her tights. That's a pair of socks. It's one sock. So a sock for legs. Makes it really easy. You could do yours out of fabric if you wanted to. It really is up to you. You could just make some little strips of fabric and tie knots in the end. Absolutely up to you. I'm just showing you how I made this one. With the arms. Arms are really simple. So if you look at this, it's just a rectangle of felt folded in half. I've put a little hand on there and the little hand's holding a pencil. But they're just attached on, no stuffing involved in these arms. They're literally floppy bits of felt, and I've just sewn them on with a button at either shoulder there. It's really simple. So rectangles of felt. So you're going to need felt for base, backing and arms. Here we go, let's put that on there. Let's think embellishments. So anything you want to add onto your doll that makes it more fun. So for example, she's got a little trim collar going on around her dress here. I've done some embroidery. We've got some buttons going on. This is a button, actually. It's a button that was sent to me by someone. Please let me know who it was who sent me this button, because I want to get some more of these little pencil buttons. They're amazing. She likes collecting bits of beautiful embroidery, like shiny embroidered bits of gauze. So she's safety pinned that one to her arm. So anything that you want to add in, we've got little beads here, we've got a little heart button just there. And on her legs, I didn't make her shoes, although I could have made her shoes. All I did was I've just tied off where her foot is with a little bit of velvet ribbon, and that kind of does the job as well. You can make these as simple as or as complicated as you want them to be. Right, so let's get going, shall we? I'm going to get my scraps, I'm going to make sure I've cut out my pattern, and we'll be ready to go. But there, if you want to have a little look, see what you're going to need. Right, so I've got my pattern cut out. I've got a piece of felt that I'm going to cut my base out of. I'm not going to cut the backing for it. The reason being is that once you stitch into this, sometimes it can shrink slightly. So I'll show you how I deal with that. I mean, you could cut both of them out at the same time. It really is up to you. Remember though, that it might be wonky. I like wonky in my dolls, I have to say. So you'd have to reverse it to do the other side. Or you just flip it over because felt's double-sided. It depends whether you're using fabric or felt, basically. But it's just easier. If you flip it, you never forget if you're using material where it's going to be makes a difference, whether it's the front or the back. Hope that's a little clear. I probably should get on now with getting this cut out. So I am just going to pin my pattern that's in my felt really loosely. It really doesn't matter if this is a bit wonky. It really doesn't matter at all. But I'm going to do it anyway. So I've got big scissors. These are such fun to make. Really, really a lot of fun. And use what you have felt-wise. You don't tend to see this once it's covered over with fabrics anyway. So, you know, just use what you have. Don't go out and buy something specifically for it. And if you've got wadding, you could use that as well. I tend to like felt because it doesn't fray and it's quite firm. There we go. So I've cut out my base, and now what I want to do, take the pins out. Like so. And I am going to cover this piece in scraps of fabric. So it's got a little bit there. No, I'm being a bit picky, but there we go. Right, I'm going to grab out my scraps of fabric and I'll be back. So I've picked out 3 fabrics that I felt will work quite nicely with this. So I've just got to decide how they're going to go. You can iron yours if you want. I'm just going in willy-nilly because it's all going to be covered over in the sewing up and making up anyway. Let's have a look. I might just trim this piece down. This is really fun. It's got cupcakes all over it. I'm sure another doll of mine would love cupcakes. And you want to make sure that your base piece is all covered over. So, do I want that to be at the top? See, I'm changing my mind now. Changing my mind. Do I want the balloons? I want the balloons in somewhere because they're fun. I'm going to cut myself a bit of this off. Not measuring. That could be a disaster, but it's fine. I don't need all of that either. So I'm going to cut myself just a little rectangle there. Perfect. Now I think, yeah, I will go for that as a middle piece. So, something like that. and then this top bit is going to be these little hearts. And cut myself a piece off. And say you can go to town with yours and iron it if you want to. I'm being really random. I'm going to cut these little straggly bits off there, just because. I can hear snippy sounds. It's just me cutting this edge bit off here. Right, so that's covering the piece up. So what I'm going to do now is just play around with the placement a little bit and grab my pins again. And I'm just going to pin the fabric to the doll. I'm not going to worry about raw edges. I'm not going to worry about that there's bits hanging off the end, because I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that in a minute. Make sure I've got a piece pin, a little bit pinned to the top here, like so. Making sure it's all pinned down. It's not going to fall apart on me. I love these little applique pins. They are the bee's knees as far as I'm concerned. You know I love my clips, but when I have to use pins, these are the ones I use. The little clover applique pins. They come in a little pot and they don't get in my way. Well, sometimes they do, but not as much as the big ones do. So, making sure I've got it all pinned, especially where the base is. And there, in that corner there. Okay, now we have a little flippy over jobby like so. And what I'm doing is I'm going to trim the edges of the fabric to match the felt. It doesn't have to be perfect, because it's fun. Okay, trim the base like so. I've got all these little scraps now to play with something else. So we flip it back over again and we've got our shape. Looks a little bit like those Russian dolls, doesn't it? The little Matryoshka dolls or whatever they're called. So that's my piece, that's my base. And I am going to do what I do with all of my pieces, is just running stitch all the way up and down this with the thread. So if we look at this one, you can see all the running stitches? I just literally do that up and down the whole piece. So I'll pick a thread. I'm going to pick probably like a purpley or a pinky coloured thread to go on this one, and just stitch up and down it in a running stitch all the way down to the bottom, starting at the top edge, going down to the bottom. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you what we need to do with the rest. So first of all, grab myself some thread. So this piece now has been stitched from top to bottom with a running stitch. You can see that I just picked a purple thread out, and that kind of tends to unify the area so that all of it kind of blends in together. Quite nice. So the next thing we need to do is to have a look at where the position of the face of your doll is going to be. So let's have a look at my first little Scrappy doll here. And she's got kind of like a roundish face. It's not a perfect circle. If you wanted a perfect circle, you could actually grab any circle template. You could have ovals or circles. I've got some ovals here. So kind of see what fits. That would fit. Or if you wanted more of a circular face, let's have a little look. So that would fit as well. So either of those two options, or just make your own. Just literally cut some out of felt. Underneath here, I've got some wool felt that I'm going to use as the backing for mine. So if we look at this one, you can see I've used a wool felt backing for that. I use wool felt. This is 100% wool felt because of it's just so nice to touch. It's very tactile. It's a natural fibre and it will hold up well to sort of handling, because they do get handled. She's been handled quite a lot. Give her a cuddle every night. But yeah, so wool felt is great, or a wool blend. So something with at least 40% wool in it is going to be fine. That works really well. So I'm just going to trim these edge bits off. Anything, little hanging threads, just get trimmed off. Now, I'm going to sew. If you look at my piece here, I've actually over sewed around where all the joins are. But first of all, I'm going to put her face on so that I can see whereabouts, you know, I need to sew. So I've got a little squarey piece I'm cutting off from my wool felt. I'm going to make that into the face. Now, I could just wing this and cut that out, and that's what I did for mine. I'm going to use a template for this one, just because. Why not? Now the question is, do I go for a circular one or a oval? I'm going to go circular. Let's do the circular one. So we said that one there fitted lovely. So what I'm going to do is, on my little square of felt, you can't actually see that there, can you? I'm going to put it there. There we go. I'm going to perfect fit. Perfect fit. I'm going to grab my, this is an air disappearing pen, so it disappears with air, basically. And I don't need it to last that long, just long enough for me to cut it out. So I'm going to cut out. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you wanted to wing it and wing your own shape, you could draw a circle and then alter it if you wanted it to have some kind of a chin or something. That would be up to you, your prerogative. Yeah, that'll do nicely. I've got some Scrappy felt there. I always save my little scraps of wool felt because I use them for all kinds of stuff, and it is a little more expensive than the ordinary felt, so I don't waste any of it. I don't even waste the acrylic felt, to be fair. So I'm looking at her face there. That will go quite nicely onto that bit. See, with this one, she's got kind of like a little wonky tilt, which I liked. But if you don't like that and you want it to be a bit more symmetrical, you could even give her face a little wonky tilt like that. I think I might do that with this one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to over sew this onto my piece. Now I'm going to do it with a more decorative thread, just because it gets seen. So I'm going to go with this variegated thread, chop myself a bit off, and go find a needle. Now that's a difficult bit. Well, it's not difficult. I have 100 needles, but finding one on my desk when they're all packed away is not as easy as you might think. There we go. So I'm going to do all this before I put the back on. I'm going to thread this up and I'll be back. So I'm not even bothering to pin this on, or you could if you wanted to, if you don't want it to shift around while you're stitching. I'm just being a bit maverick here. I'm just going to stitch this on. It's just an oversew stitch. My thread's quite thick. This one's quite a thick thread. But it depends on if you want it to blend into the background, then you'd pick a thread that goes with your felt. If you want to make a feature of it, as I am doing here, then pick with something that's going to stand out a little more. At this point, you can have a look at how you would like the face to look. Some of the ways that you could do this was to use a template that you cut out the felt piece from, and I just drew this into my sketchbook, and then I'm going to look at how I want my face to look. So it's going to be on an angle, and I like a little nose that comes in from the top, and I'm going to put either some felt or fabric cheeks on. I'm going to draw those in. Obviously you design yours however you like. If you don't like that kind of a nose, you could just do a simple fly stitch nose. That would work nicely. And you could have some blush cheeks that you do with some pastel or hair chalk. I've got some hair chalk that I do mine with, which has conveniently run away. Here it is. It's hair chalk in all those different pinky colours. I've had that for a while though. But soft pastels would work as well. So you could do a little nose like that, and then I'm going to do a little mouth there. You could have eyebrows if you want to give them a mischievous look, however you place the eyebrows. It really is up to you. I've got some little brads that I want to use for eyes, so they're going to go in there. And then my cheeky mouth will go there, and I'm going to stitch that, so that's going to be an embroidered mouth there. Those are brads. That's going to be fabric, and so are they. The cheeks, and then that's going to be embroidered. You could add in a face with fabric paint. You could add in a face with fabric pens. However you want to do it. I like this way because it means I could do a bit more stitching. So the embroidered mouth is really simple, but I'll show you that when we come to it. But yeah, just take some time thinking about how you would like your doll to look. So that's a little eye. Oh, it looks quite evil now. Not make it look evil. But yeah, have a think about how you want your doll to look and try a few ways. And then you could even cut out pieces or whatever and try them on the face before you stitch them down or commit to them, just to help you position things. And that's how I suggest you deal with that. Again, embroidery is a really nice way to do it, but as I say, you could use dimensional paints even to give a mouth and a nose. I use brads for eyes, but you could use buttons or felt pieces. Have a play, see what you like, because it's your doll and it's your idea. And I'm trying to give you some free rein as to do however you want to do yours. Let's pop that to one side. Okay, so this is how she's looking now. I've sewn down all the bits that were sticking up on the fabric. I'm not worried about the edges now because they're all going to be included in the sewing around part that I will do after I've finished all the decoration that I'm going to do on my doll. So on my original doll, I've got some little felt circles there that I've embroidered flower heads into. I've got some embroidered flowers that I did there with some buttons, and it's a case of just do what you fancy. Just go in with what you like. You could put some more applique in here. You could have some little words that you put on. I've got one here. It's really badly embroidered, but it says hog, and that will go on there. You could put that on there if you wanted to. So I could stitch that on there if I wanted to. I'd probably have a go at trying to make that look a little bit more legible. That's just my practice of embroidery on the machine. But I'd probably do a little hand stitch piece. So you could put little words of you could put create or stitch or colour. You know, you could do anything just to give you like little words of inspiration. When you look at your doll, then you think, yeah, I need to do some creating or whatever. Anyway, so other things I've added on my little fabric nose and cheeks like I showed you in the drawing. They've all been stitched down as well. I'm going to do the brads for the eyes in a minute, and I'll show you how I do the mouth of my dolls so you can see how that goes on. I found a little felt heart that I've just stitched onto the front of it, and I could add in even more embellishments. I could find some buttons and things I want to use, but I want to show you, carry on showing you a little bit more of how this works. So the next thing I need to do is to add in these brads. I'm going to get my little ball out and I'll show you the brads. They were, if you can see on the back, they're like a brass tack, braddy kind of thing. And what I've done is I've painted these up with enamel paint. Previously, I've done a whole bunch of these because I use them a lot. I use the smaller ones that you can buy as a black, but I could only get these ones in a brass colour, so I've just painted them with enamel paint. So that's how that one works. So let me have a little look where I want my eyes to be. So there's my cheek, so I want an eye there and an eye there. Now her face is slightly wonky because I wanted it to have like a tilted head look. And when I've got what I want, I'll take my awl and push it through to make room for the brad to go. Take the brad. It's got quite big arms on this one. Some of them are smaller. I use for my animals, so that one's going there. And second one is going to go in there. Just open those out at the back. These are clearly not suitable for young children. I always say about these, they're more suited to adults or older children who know of safety issues and things about dolls. If you want to be super careful and safe about giving these to young children, then you make sure that you made fabric eyes or drawn on eyes or something like that. And that's the way to deal with that. Okay, so now I'm going to give myself a little guideline of what I want the mouse to look like. So it's going to be like that. You could give her lips however you want it. Now this fades in heat, so I'm going to have to be quick with putting this together. You could do the mouth in whatever thread you want. You could do a red mouth or whatever. I quite like the black mouth. So that's what I'm going to use. I've got some black pearl thread. This is an Anchor 1 pearl cotton. Make sure I put a knot in the end. It'll all come through. Double it up like so. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a little starting point there, and that's going to be like the edge of her smile. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to do this in kind of like a split stitch fashion. So when I come up, I'm coming back through that thread, or as close as I can get to going through it. There we go. Taking it down like so, and coming back up there, going back through there. You could just do back stitch, that would work just as well. I'm just splitting it down the middle there. There we go. And I'm going to finish that off with a little smiley post at the other side, like that. So now she's got her face. You could also do some little eyelashes, which I tend to do on mine. I do 3 little lines coming out from the side of the eye. You can give her eyebrows if you want to. Be careful of how you shape the eyebrows though, because sometimes it can look, and can give it an expression that you don't really like. So try it out first on a piece of paper. Make sure you've got the expression, because eyebrows tend to, as in drawing, give an expression to the face. Okay, so now she's got some little eyelashes as well. I don't worry about what goes on the back. There's a lot of people go, oh, show me the back. Well, you don't really want to see the back. This is this is just stitching in the moment. You don't need to worry about the back. Like so. Okay, so what I've also done, she's got a little bit of trim around her neck that I've stitched on there as well. You can, as I say, you can put whatever you want on your doll. It's your doll. You choose what you want to go on it. Next thing we need to do is to bring back our wool felt. And I think I can fit her on that bit there. So I'm going to roughly just cut the size I'm wanting, making sure she's going to fit on it, like so. Put that on one side and do a little position. Great thing about felt, it doesn't fray, so you don't need to worry about directions. It's got no grain to worry about. I'm just going to pin her on to the backing like this. If you wanted to, you could use your pattern piece to draw it out on the felt. You know, you could just put that on the felt and draw it out. I like to use the actual piece just in case it's changed a little due to the stitching or things you've added in. And just to hold that down to the felt. Oh, we've got 2 there. Doubling up on my pinnage. Okay, put that on the bottom bit there. Another one in this corner here. You don't want it to be flapping up while you cut it. So you want to make sure it's down at all points where it may come up a little bit. And now I've got my big scissors and I'm going to very carefully cut around the shape. Try not to cut through any threads. Let me tuck that away underneath. I don't want things coming apart on me. When I'm feeling really reckless, I don't bother pinning. I just I just lay it on top. But I thought, you know what? Just to be on the safe side, we'll go like this. Trim the bottom to match a little bit there. That kind of tilts up there a little bit like so. So now you've got the backing and you've got the front of your doll. You'll be saying to me, what about the hair, Kooky? Well, with the hair, I tend to add that afterwards. That's an afterwards job for me. This bit is the next part that I do. And then I think about the hair afterwards. I kind of consider how it looks and how it's lying, and the hair's an afterthought. And there are a few ways that we can do that as well. Why did I just unpin it? Am I crazy? Yes I am. So I just missed a little bit there. Put all those pins back in again. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to over sew or blanket stitch, whichever you prefer, this from that corner all the way around to there, leaving the bottom open. So you must leave a gap there so that we can stuff this and put the legs in. The legs are very important. Everyone needs legs, even dollies. So let me repin this. So yeah, blanket stitch or over sew stitch, whichever you like to use the best. I use both, but I'm going to do a blanket stitch on this one. I'm going to pick a nice contrasting thread, pearl thread, maybe a variegated one, just because for the heck of it, why not? And I'm just going to, from there, all the way around to this side here, and then stop, and I'll be back with you. Because you don't want to sit and watch me do that, do you? So here she is. I have blanket stitched all the way around from there to there. So I've got a nice variegated thread on that one, because you get to see it on the back as well as on the front as well. So now what I'm going to show you is how I make the legs, and they are pretty simple. So I'm just trimming a thread off there. Okay, I use a sock. So I picked out this sock because it's kind of funky, and all my girls are kind of funky. And how I do this is I kind of look to where the heel is there. You can generally, it's like an inset piece on most socks you've got, or just as long as you want the legs to be. And I'm going to just cut away, and I'm going to keep that because that will also make another pair of legs for another doll. This one also, if you use this side, you've got like feet areas as well. Should I use that one instead? That's a question. Maybe I should. Let's try that and see what it looks like. So I'm going to cut the heel away. I'm going to keep that because that makes a good mouth for sock monkeys. Never throw anything away. Obviously, I'm going to have to hoover these bits up because the socky end bits will. Okay. Right, so now we've got little white shoe areas there. That's cool. Okay. So you think about how socks stretch, okay? So you don't want to make your legs too too wide is what I'm going to say. So I'm going to take it down this end here, right through the toe area to there. And then on the other side, I'm going to do the same. I might go up through the toe on this one. So I'm going up through the toe and to the top. I'm going to keep those bits as well, always come in handy for something. Back to the hoovering. Something in me that doesn't like the bits. Okay, I'm going to turn this inside out, and somewhere I've got my clips. There we go. So what I'm going to do, clip on that bit there, clip on the middle, and the foot, what I'm now calling the foot, on both of them. And what we want to do is to back stitch or use your sewing machine to go down there and just create a seam, curving it round at that end just to give a little pointy foot. So I'm going to do that with that one and the same with that one, and I'll be back to show you what we do with them next. So it's a back stitch if you're doing hand sewing, or just a straight stitch around with your sewing machine, which will take you seconds probably. But I'm going to go and sit with my podcast and stitch those legs together. So I have sewed these together with the right sides facing, and now I'm going to turn them. The way I'm going to turn them is with these turners, which are particularly lovely. Now, if you don't have these, just a stick will do the job. Then you kind of poke it through and voila, it is done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to poke that down, make sure that all of the foot is through. That worked out quite well actually. Okay, next one. So take the tube and it goes inside the socky thing, and then you just push it through. Very handy tool if you're making a lot of things. Turning tools are very handy. This set is a Prim set, I think it was. Yeah, it's Prim, and it's got a smaller tool, a medium and a large. I've got a few sets of these because I tend to have them in different places. Sometimes take them away with me as well if I'm doing some stitching of dolls. Let me just get the pokey tool back into there again, just to get that toe area there. That's quite handy. That one's not quite as long, but it's a Scrappy doll, so it doesn't really matter. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is to stuff the legs and stuff the body. Now I use this polyester filling that's specifically for toys and pillows, etc. And it has got the standard on it. You don't want to use like old toy stuffing or pillow stuffing if it's been used, because that contains all kinds of bacteria you don't really want to introduce to your doll. And yeah, not nice. So I have got a stuffing fork somewhere, but I'm just going to use this little bit of this tool to stuff the legs. You don't want to stuff them too firmly, or you don't want to make them kind of blobby. You want to try and even out your stuffing. But you don't want them to be overstuffed, is what I'm saying, because it's a small doll and she doesn't need, I mean, these could stretch out quite a way if you stretched out the socks. That's why I was doing it with the other end, so I didn't poke through. But yeah, try and keep it even and mould it around as you're going so that you've not got any lumps and bumps. Do that for both of them, and then you want to start stuffing your doll. Again, with a similar process. You can be a bit firmer with this stuffing of the doll body, but with the legs, because they're stretchy, you want to be kind of taking it easy a bit. So I use quite big bits of stuffing. If you use smaller bits, it can get lumpy and bumpy. You don't want no lumpy bumpies. So I'm going to continue stuffing her and the legs, and I'll be back and show you what we do next. Okay, so now I have stuffed the legs and the body, and I've positioned the legs inside the bottom half of the body. I've not taken them right to the edges. You can put them wherever you like. I've kind of taken them about 1 centimetre or so in, or 1.5 centimetres in from the edge. And what I'm going to do now is to over sew the bottom of the dress, going through all the layers. What I do is I go through the front layer and then go round and do the back as well. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm just going to over sew from there to there. Turn it over and make sure I've got all those back bits in. So make sure it's all included and finished off. And then what we need to do is add a little trim onto the bottom, just to add a little skirty area that finishes this off. But first of all, let's sew this up so that it's all enclosed, and then we can have a look at creating a little bit of a trim around the edge. So it's a little while later and we've got updates. So I found some trim to go around the bottom of this little dress, which is this lovely trim that I had left over, and that has kind of perfectly finished off the bottom of this dress, and we've got a little bit of decoration going on there. Also found a couple of pencil buttons that I didn't know I had in an old tin. So that was a luck. I was looking for some buttons and found these, and I thought, oh, perfect for my little doll. So they've gone on as well, and another little button on there. Now, while I was doing this, I have inadvertently found another way of doing the arms. So remember the way we did the legs? Well, we had some leftover fabric from that, so I have created some arms, but instead of stuffing them like I did with the legs, they have had pipe cleaners put in. So all I've done is I've folded over a pipe cleaner like that, and that's gone into the arm when I've stitched it, and I've left that kind of like hand shape. So can you see? Or you can shape that once it's inside to give it that shape. And then they've just been left as is and attached with buttons like I did with the folded over felt. So you can do either version. You can do the folded over felt version, or you can do my new version, which is the other bit of the sock, the middle bit that we didn't use that I saved, and I thought actually that would work because it's thinner than the legs as well, so it works well for arms. Pipe cleaners work in there perfectly. If you don't have pipe cleaners, it's not a problem. You could just lightly stuff it or just leave them loose and you could stitch them in positions. How cool. That's something I've just learnt myself, and I thought, as I have just learnt that, I will pass it on to you. So we are in the position now where we've got everything completed. Might do something with the feet. I might tie a little bow around like I did on these ones to finish the feet off. But the next thing to look at is the hair. So that's the next thing I'm going to look at. So depending on what you want to achieve, there are many ways of doing the hair. So yarn is one option. This one had a little bit of a furry fringe going on. This is a piece of old fur fabric that I had hanging around that works perfectly well as a little fringe. But also these yarn, it's just yarn that's been plaited and just sewn onto the head to make 2 little braids. You could just literally just use yarn without the fur. It's a matter of taste and a matter of what's going to be happening with it. So that really is like a personal thing to you, how you would like your hair to be. But those are 2 ways. So you could use even more fur around the edges just to make a short hairdo, or you could add braids, or you could have it loose. One way I'm going to try now is something that I've not tried, but I'm trying. Just started a little bit, and that's adding in some wool roving just by needle felting. So I'm just trying this as an let's see what happens if, and I'm just grabbing locks and adding them in. Might need to be a little short, but I can always trim it later. So I've folded it in half, and I'm just going to needle felt it in now. What I do believe I might need is just my needle felting pad just to keep my fingers safe. And you can needle felt into fabrics as well, so this is working quite well. I am liking so far. So I'm going to keep going with this. Now, bearing in mind that needle felting into fabric is really easy to do. It's also easy to pull out. So if you don't like it, you can just literally pull it out. But also that's a thing to bear in mind when you've finished. If you want this to be more secure, you might just have to stitch some things down a little bit as well. I'm building up the locks. So I'm going to do this one for, actually I might give her a little sideways do. Quite enjoying this. So I'm going to continue just felting this down into the head, making sure it's nice and secure. I'm just using a singular, kind of a thinnish needle because I want it to go through the fabric as well. And I'll come back and show you what I've done when I finished it. So I'm just going to keep adding in bits where I feel it needs it and then see what happens. It is as simple as that. It's a see what happens situation. We can do the yarn that worked for the last one. Now let's try a different look. So I'm going to keep going on, adding in some yarn, and then I'll show you what I've come up with. Okay, so here is my second mini-me. I really enjoyed the needle felting. That's really cool. I'm going to practice with that a bit more because this is my very first attempt at needle felting hair for a rag doll. So, or a Scrappy doll, should I say. So yeah, I'm going to play with that a little bit more, but I think it looks quite nice. It's very cute. She's got a little flower in her hair now as well, and she's got some little ankle socksies going on as well. Just because I found a little scrap of this trim and I thought, oh, that'd look nice around her feet. So there we go. So there we have our 2 Scrappy dolls. You can choose however you want to do yours. Do the yarn hair, do the wool hair. You can change up decoration on the dress. You could decorate the backs if you want to. That is all down to you and up to your choices. But the basic pattern, as I said, is going to be on my Facebook group. Just that really simple basic pattern that you can just cut the body and the face area out from, and then the rest is just playtime. all playtime. And you two agree with that, don't you? Yep, you agree with me. It's great. I can just make them agree with everything. Anyway, that's enough from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at my Scrappy dolls and how I put them together. And I hope that you're going to have a go and make your own little mini-me as well. If you do, don't forget to share it in the Facebook group. Come and join us. There's a lot of beautiful people there, all sharing and enjoying their crafts together. And it's just a simple 3 questions that you have to answer. But you also have to be subscribed to me here on the channel at YouTube. So if you've enjoyed this, give me a little thumbs up and subscribe. That's it from me. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.